Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 13th, 2022 meeting of the Shrewsbury Finance Committee. I'm Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum present. And I think we'll start off with just introductions of all members. We have a lot of new members this evening, so we'll just ask everyone to introduce themselves so everyone can familiarize themselves, and then we'll get moving into the reorganization of the committee, the selection of the chair, and then I'll turn it over to the chair to run it from there. So start with Vikram, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the committee and the folks. I know you've been on for a while, but we'll just go right around.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. So I'm Vikram Chabra, currently serving as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee. I've been on this board for about 3 years now and a longtime resident of Shrewsbury.
Dennis, you want to go this way?
Sure.
Okay.
Dennis O'Connell. I think this is my third year in Finance Committee. Been resident of the town for about 30 years myself. Been involved in other Shrewsbury activities as well.
I'm Lena Polita. This is my second year serving on the Finance Committee. Was born and raised in Shrewsbury and looking forward to another productive year.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Ganger. I am a lifelong Shrewsbury resident as well, and this is my first Finance Committee meeting.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Flynn. We've been in Shrewsbury for about 20 years, and like Brian, this is my first opportunity to serve on the Finance Committee.
Diana?
Good evening. My name is Diana Bowley. I've been in Shrewsbury for about 8 years now. I've in New England for only 10, and this is my first year on the Finance Committee.
Good evening. This is Milind Kanitkar. I've been a resident of Shrewsbury for the last 12 years. Been in New England for 25 years now. And then I have been participant to various town initiatives. First time in Finance Committee.
I'm Carlos Garcia. This will be my third year on the Finance Committee. I also serve as a town meeting member from Precinct 1, and I've been doing that since 2017.
Great. Well, welcome to all the new members and the returning members. We do look forward to, as Lena said, another productive year. We have a lot of, we have introductory business tonight and then business in a couple weeks again, preparing for a special town meeting. So without further ado, we'll move to the third item on the agenda, which is the reorganization of the committee. And in order to make that happen, we'll select nominations for an individual or individuals to serve as the chairperson of the Finance Committee. Upon nominations, if there's a motion and a second, once I'm sure that all nominations have been made, we'll move in order to vote for a chairperson. So I will open it up to committee for a motion to nominate one of you all as the chair. I see Carl.
So I move to nominate Vikram Chabra as chair.
Okay, so
Second.
there's first and a second for the nomination. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Okay, so I will. Is there a motion to elect Vikram to be the chair of the Finance Committee?
I move to elect Vikram to be Chair of Finance Committee.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Vikram, I'll turn the meeting over to you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kevin. We will now proceed to the next item in the reorganization, which is basically to select our vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Carlos as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any other nominations? So I will, can we have a motion to
I move.
nominate Carlos for the position of vice chair?
I move to nominate Carlos for the position of Vice Chair of the Finance Committee.
And a second?
Second.
We'll now call a vote. All in favor of electing Carlos as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against it, please say nay. The motion is moved. Congratulations, Carlos.
Congratulations.
We will now move to the third person on the committee, the clerk. Do I have a motion for any nomination for the position of clerk on the Finance Committee?
I move to nominate Dennis O'Connell as clerk.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? If not, can I get a motion to nominate Dennis O'Connell as clerk of the Finance Committee?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We'll now proceed to vote. All those in favor of voting for Dennis O'Connell as clerk of our Finance Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Congratulations, Dennis.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I knew they put me here for a reason.
So the next item on our agenda is basically the minutes of our June 16th meeting. So all new members are also allowed to vote on this to approve. So do we have any, I just have to open it on my machine.
I move to approve the minutes of the June 16th Finance Committee meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes of the June 16th minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The minutes are approved. And now we move to the fifth item on our agenda, which is basically the town manager's report. Over to you, Kevin.
Great, thank you, Vikram. The first matter of business under the town manager's report this evening is we'll have a presentation, and I'm going to recap the fiscal 22 revenues and charges. Fiscal, as the committee knows, fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th, so this is the year ended June 30th. Alex, you can go ahead and move on. So we started off the year for fiscal year 22 with a budget of $136,139,713. At the end of the year, there was roughly $2.5 million that was conventionally known in municipal finance as turned back, or revenues that were, funds that were appropriated through the budget process but were not expended. So while $2.5 million is a large number by itself, we did spend just a little bit over 98% of the total budget that was appropriated. So there were a couple aspects that I can point out to where the funds were turned back from. One of the largest two sources was the employee health insurance line item. So the employee health insurance line item is a little over $13 million in fiscal year 22. We turned back about $600,000 from that line item. And then kind of a new anomaly or something that's quite rare historically is that in the police department salary and wage line item, we turned back about $800,000 that wasn't expended. The primary reason for that is because we've had a lot of turnover and difficulty staffing and finding eligible candidates for the police department. It's really a nationwide problem at this time. We made offers, put some people in the police academy. They either didn't make it through or decided partway through that they didn't want to be police officers. There's been a lot of people leave the profession because of the new peace officer standards, training council standards that are in place, and the personal liabilities that are associated with that. So bit of an anomaly with the police department, but again, expended over 98% of the funds that town meeting had provided to us. And health insurance and police departments were the largest aspects of the budget that turned funds back.
Quick question, if I may. Do we have a full staffing in the police department now, or are we still below staff?
We don't. We currently have, there's 55 sworn positions, including the chief. There's 5 positions that are currently vacant right now. We are lining additional officers up for the academy, but the police academy is offered normally 4 to 6 times a year. So not only, it takes us a really long time to, not only go through the candidates and the full background check, have someone pass the physical aptitude test, and then go to the academy. So really, as Chief Anderson, you'll hear him say, I'm sure many times as you're on the committee, from the time we have authorized funds in hand and select a candidate to them being able to be on their own in the field takes about 18 months. So it's we're kind of chasing our tail a little bit right now with the challenges that we're having, but we're moving aggressively. We're actually proposing more individuals for the academy than we have slots because we know some other individuals will be retiring in the near future. So by the time we get back to next July 1, it'll be my hope that we're at full staff.
And I guess it's difficult to hire from a different department because people usually don't switch.
Yeah, yep, there's, some rules being a civil service community, not a lot of interest in lateral transfers always, a lot of parity among the departments, just doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of time for individuals to move, so.
Okay, so I figured we're doing what we can to get that filled. And
We are trying, yeah. Okay, keep going. All right, so local receipts is our third largest revenue category. Our first being the real estate tax, second being state aid, and the third is local receipts. And local receipts are really the category that the Finance Committee follows very closely throughout the course of the year. Once we get through the first quarter, we'll provide you monthly updates with the revenues that we receive. Local receipts are really influenced by the general economic climate that we find ourselves in. This includes things like our motor vehicle excise tax, meals excise tax, cannabis excise tax, licenses and permit revenues, and other miscellaneous department revenues that come in throughout the course of the year. So for fiscal year 22, we estimated about $10.8 million in coming in for local receipts, but we realized just shy of $13.4 million. So that's a rather large difference. It was obviously what we like to see. We had very strong local receipts. We'll get into some details about that. But one of the reasons that we only estimated a little bit shy of 10.9 million is because when we were developing this budget for fiscal year 22, we found ourselves in the throes of the pandemic, and we weren't sure what was going to be happening with the general economic environment, and we were very conservative with our estimates. So we were building the FY22 budget in the early months of calendar year 2021. Certainly a lot of uncertainty at that point in time. So as we move forward, two things about local receipts. We'll continue to be conservative year over year. Whenever we when we underestimate local receipts, those funds just flow to free cash, which remains a reserve asset of the community that can be appropriated in the future. So it remains an asset. But I'll just talk a little bit about the details of those, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, Kevin, you did mention that going forward, you plan to continue to stay conservative in estimates for 23 and beyond.
Right. Yeah, we do. It's part of, at the outset of the budget process in the next few months, we'll share a new revenue forecast for you. I'll talk a little bit about some of the uncertainty that I'm seeing right now and the concerns that I have for fiscal year 23 going forward. But in all scenarios, as we have historically done, we'll continue to remain conservative in our estimates. Never want to be in a position where we estimate more than we actually bring in, because we'll end the year in a deficit and put ourselves in the hole for the start of the next year. So,
any other questions?
I'd say, is one of your concerns motor vehicle excise tax?
Yep.
And both due to the supply chain issues that still seem to be going on, but also include inflation. You're not going to be able to get the 0% financing quite so easy now.
That's correct. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and what are we estimating? What are we thinking that will be?
Yeah. So we have up on the screen now. So for fiscal year 22, we estimated $6,175,000 for motor vehicle excise tax. We only actually brought in $6,069,000. So this is the first year in quite some time, and really only the second or third year in the last 20 years where motor vehicle excise tax declined year over year.
I noticed that.
The biggest concern that I have for right now is when we developed the FY23 budget, we estimated about $6.5 million in motor vehicle excise tax. So, yeah, I do have supply chain concerns and kind of everyone, what everyone else knows about the motor vehicle marketplace, how long it takes to get a vehicle, and maybe we avoided the freight train strike, which would have really impacted the market even more. So we'll shift funds among the categories. I don't see a need to change the bottom line of what we'll estimate for fiscal year 23 because we outperformed in many other areas of the budget, but motor vehicle excise tax will need some further thought, and we'll be transparent about that even a little bit later this evening as we talk about fiscal year 23 more. So you see meals excise tax clearly outperformed. Again, we're being handicapped by the by the pandemic, and the estimate was really low at the time. Obviously, in January of 2021, most restaurants weren't even at full capacity, and we were dealing with the second major wave of COVID-19. So we were glad to see them bounce back as strong as they were. Cannabis, fiscal year 22 marked the first full year that we had 2 retailers open. So we had a conservative estimate of $305,000, so there's some room for adjustment there.
So Kevin, when isn't this number, the actual number, very close to the original estimate we had for cannabis a couple of years ago?
It is, yeah. Yeah, we were estimating around that amount. That's exactly right. Yep. Departmental fees, which are miscellaneous revenues that departments receive. One of the largest categories is the funds that we receive from the Medicaid program to support education of those individuals who are eligible for those funds. It's really hard to predict. We get a final payment from the federal government in the fourth quarter of our fiscal year. Sometimes it lands on the wrong side of the fiscal year, but this year we got about $700,000, and that came in within the fiscal year. So that really supported that and increased that number up. Licenses and permits, the 1.461 million is the historic high for licenses and permits in any single fiscal year. The Edgemere drive-in redevelopment and some other, and a lot of other developments, single-family homes included, really drove that number up higher than what it was. And of course, building permit fees are based on the estimated value of construction, so inflation is pushing that up as well. And other receipts are just a number of miscellaneous categories that we could detail out, but it's really less than 10% or about 10% of the total revenues, so they outperformed as well. So we have about 18 different categories that we'll work through during the normal fiscal year, but all in all, good news, $2.5 million greater than the budget estimate, with the $13.4 million coming in for fiscal year 22.
Sure, please, Milind.
So, Kevin, quick question from a other receipts perspective. What are the, do you know a couple of any top categories that fall under other receipts?
Yeah, do we have that in any future slides? Actually, I can just do it this way. I can just do the detailed receipts. Sure, I can. Let me just pull that up for you and give you a couple ideas what's in there. So this would include, so there's 2 portions of cannabis. One is a host community agreement fee, and one is the excise. Both are 3%. So the host community impact is in the other receipts. We receive funding through the school system for homeless individual transportation. It's about $50,000. Supplemental tax, which is capturing the value of property that changes from July 1 through June 30th of any year, that's billed out by the assessor. So that's a real estate component, is about $143,000. That's considered a local receipt. We receive a pilot agreement from the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, and that's about $42,000. And then we receive a pilot payment from Selco associated with the solar field on the municipal landfill. It's about $45,000.
Thank you.
Sure. So this is a little hard to see on the screen, but this is just actuals to budgeted graph. You can see we exceeded in all categories except for motor vehicle excise, but the challenge with that, of course, is motor vehicle excise is 50% of the total revenue source. And then, so moving on from local receipts when it comes to revenues for the fiscal year, our largest receipt category is the real estate tax. Real estate and then personal property. And personal property tax is conveyed upon equipment within private for-profit businesses. So you can see there that of the revenue scheme, we anticipated and billed out just over $96.5 million in total real estate taxes. Real estate tax collection in Massachusetts provides a very stable revenue source, and that proved itself again this year, where we collected almost 99% of all the receipts or the invoices that we billed out for real estate. Of course, there's strong reason to pay your real estate, as the town, would get first position on the property, and 60% of our real estate taxes are paid through an escrow company because there's a mortgage associated with the property. And banks, of course, are not going to allow the taxes to get behind. You can see that we've provided data as of June 30 for each individual year from 2022 back to 2019. That just shows the strength of our main revenue sources collection, ranging anywhere from 98.2 to 98 almost 9% in any given year. Very similar numbers, although only about $1.5 million in total personal property, still very strong collections.
So Kevin, between 21 and 22, in our real estate, the billing, there's like a significant increase. So I'm assuming because of the real estate increase, like how real estate properties went up. So if we have a recession, if we go into a recession, do we expect that to somehow come down in the following years?
Fortunately, no. Because of the way real estate taxes are written into the general laws, the town is always focused on the tax levy, so the total amount of money that we raise. It's not subject to changes in real estate value. So we look at the tax levy, the total amount billed year over year, not the value of the property in town. So if the value of the property declined in town, the tax rate would go up. We would still collect the same, or normally 2.5% more year over year than we did in the prior year.
So then do you attribute the increase to new developments?
I'm sorry?
The increase of 13 million?
So that's a couple major drivers, the police station and the override. Yep.
Yeah.
So a little shy of $9 million of that is the override.
Jim?
Kevin,
Yep.
just on refunds, is that, even on 2022?
Yep.
Is that just for folks filing abatements?
So refunds are actually different. So refunds are actually overpayments that occur for one reason or another, and we see them the most when there's a real estate closing. So sometimes, 3 or 4 quarters or 2 or 3 quarters will be paid at the closing, and then the homeowner will come in and pay the next quarter or mail in the next quarter when they receive the advice, even though nothing's due. So kind of something that I ask the treasurer about every year, really $230,000 of overpayments, but yeah, that is true. We only issue refund checks in June of every year, so we do let the whole year pay out, but those are true overpayments.
Thank you.
Yep. So this is just kind of a integrated look at all the years from 2022 to back to 2018. Of course, we continue to collect taxes from prior years. So you can see we really start to narrow the total amount of outstanding tax on a year-by-year basis and bring it down to a very low number in comparison to even any given year that we bill out taxes. So you'll recall, or you'll see from the prior slide, that we started or ended 2021 with about almost $1.4 million in real estate taxes still due. But by the end of fiscal year 22, there was only about $500,000 outstanding. So we continue to try to, collect those back taxes. We often see that someone just misses a quarter, and then once they get their next quarterly bill, they catch back up. So those numbers continue to decline. A little bit more technical, but I'm happy to answer any questions. When a property goes to tax title and we officially lien to tax title, those dollars are pulled off of these books and put on this is the tax collector side of the house. They're put on the treasurer side of the house. We only have about $975,000 in tax title. So you'd have to add up everything in that right-hand category, plus about another $1 million to see the total outstanding tax liability to the town at this time.
How many properties would that be roughly?
Not a lot.
So it's just a few big,
Yeah, it's like, say, 20 or 30 properties. One of the biggest properties remains 15 Maple Ave. The dry cleaners, that alone is nearing $400,000, almost half.
and just for people
Yep.
new to the committee, we're not foreclosing on that property because if we do, we'll be responsible for any hazardous waste
Yep.
that's there. So
Yep.
it's actually in our interest not to foreclose and try to collect that money because we'll just be spending more money.
We're working with a couple interested parties that maybe, may want to move forward with it, so hopefully we have some good news in the near future, but we'll definitely keep it posted.
Yeah.
One of the things that did happen that was good throughout the course of, I think it was in fiscal year 22, is when 420 Boston Turnpike sold to McGovern Auto Group. That brought in about $400,000 in pass-through taxes as well. So we always get our money. Sometimes it takes longer.
Government does.
Yep. So, all right. All right. So that's really the end of the report. We started with how we did on the expenditure side and wrapped up with revenues through the two main categories of real estate and local receipts. Happy to answer any questions if there are. Or
I have one quick
Sure,
question.
Milind.
Just for my own knowledge,
Sure.
when we talk about exemption abatement, what does it qualify for that? And then
Yeah.
do you know,
yep.
between commercial and residential, what that
Yep.
breakdown look like?
Yeah, sure. So most of the abatements and exemptions on the personal property side are abatements in that someone has challenged our total assessed value that we've conveyed upon a property or set a property's worth, and they challenge that, take us maybe the whole way to the appellate tax court in Boston, and then there's a ruling, and then if we have been found to overassess the taxes, we have to give it back. We abate that. The abatements and exemptions on the real estate side are normally driven by residential exemptions for income qualified or veteran qualified or various disabilities qualify for abatements and exemptions. So that's really what those are found. It also includes our senior tax work-off program, where income eligible seniors are able to work off a little shy of $2,000 in any year for working for the town. So, yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any more questions?
Great. So that's the end of the item A under the town manager's report, and then I'll just talk a little bit about our bond rating. So we actually today just sold bonds on the market for the remaining portion of the funds that we need to construct the police station. So anytime we access the bond market, we work with our financial advisor, Hilltop Securities, and get re-rated by Standard & Poor's. The town is very fortunate. We have a AAA bond rating, and that was reissued to us with a stable outlook. So that's as good as it gets. That's the highest rating that we could possibly receive, especially with the stable outlook. We continue to have such strong ratings because of our good reserve position, our position with regards to having a fully funded pension system, which is not only a rarity in Massachusetts, but across the country. The policies, the reserves, Standard & Poor's is very pleased and impressed by the approach that we've taken with overrides and the override stabilization account and the flexibility, stability, and liquidity that that provides us. So very happy to report that. In our bond sale today, of the $4,875,000, we received low interest rates from Fidelity Capital of 3.58%. That's a far larger number than 0.75% that we received in the spring of 2021 when we refinanced Sherwood, but still a really good number given the upward pressure on interest rates and the Federal Reserve's moves even within the last 60 days. So really happy about that, 3.58%. We'll be adjusting the budget to include an interest payment in April of this year, and then we'll move into full principal and interest over the 20-year term of that issuance. So very good news all in all for both the bond rating and our bond sale today. There were 5 bidders, pretty tightly grouped together between that 3.58 and about 3.88%. So good results.
I think that's wonderful news, Kevin, and I think it's reflective of you and your team's hard work,
Thank you.
and thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So,
The next item is basically, we will proceed to reviewing the draft special town meeting warrant.
yeah, so we'll just run through the draft warrant as we see it right now, and Alex will spend a little bit of time talking about the fiscal year 23 budget and opportunities that have presented itself since the annual town meeting, but I'll do everything pretty much before that, and then we can turn to the financial business that we'll include up here. So we're currently considering 10 articles. We have 2 holding spots for citizens petitions. We have a couple general bylaw adjustments. I will note to the Finance Committee, of course, as we've all discussed, one of your primary responsibilities is providing a recommendation to town meeting on each and every warrant article that's presented, whether it has direct financial implications or not. So at your next meeting will actually be a hearing on the special town meeting warrant, and you'll be given the opportunity to take testimony on each article for anyone that's interested and understand from town staff what we're proposing, and then ultimately make a recommendation after the hearing's closed. So with regards to the first 3 articles, they're all amending the general bylaws. I won't spend a lot of time on them tonight. I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting and before your public hearing. This is a draft warrant that was considered by the Board of Selectmen, and they'll sign the warrant on September 27th. So this is subject to change. We look to make an amendment to Article 14 of the Animal Control Bylaw. We've gotten behind in the adoption of some of the general laws from the Commonwealth that we have to accept as a community if we want to use them for enforcement, so we'll look to update that. The next article is to increase the fine for handicap parking violations. So if a non-eligible vehicle is parked in a handicap space, we would increase the fine from $100 to $300. $300 is the state maximum, and the additional $200 would be dedicated for the use for the Commission on Disabilities to help overcome ADA and accessibility challenges in the community.
Is this
Those
also a catch-up bylaw? Are we trying to
So
catch up with others?
we've had probably 20 years to be able to increase these fees, and it's something that hasn't really been considered, but due to the work of the Commission on Disabilities, and now we have that commission staffed by Justin Dobson. They've been working to find more opportunities to be more effective as a commission, and this is an opportunity to develop their own funding source. So I think this is a good opportunity to do that. We put a tree bylaw in place at the annual town meeting. It had a fine in it of up to $500 if it was violated. The State Attorney General's office has found, the State Attorney General reviews all of our bylaws before they're allowed to go into effect locally. They found that the $500 fine was inconsistent with the state general laws and that we can only set a maximum fine of $300, so we'll look to make that change. So I'll skip over the adjustments for the fiscal year 23 budget at this time. Alex will talk a little bit about that in a minute. We are looking to add money to the General Stabilization Fund. We are looking to fund two different aspects of needs for public safety departments. One is $7,100 to supplement a state grant to provide enhanced full body detailed physicals for firefighters given the challenges and high rates of cancer. So this will baseline all of our firefighters in a more thorough way. We're also looking to solicit proposals from firms to conduct a study to combine our dispatching operations. Currently, we dispatch police and fire separately, police from the police department, fire from the fire department. We'd look to merge those operations in the confines of the new police station that will open this January. We want to bring in a expert consulting firm to help us develop total personnel, total shift staffing. And one of the other goals that we have for this study is to create a public safety dispatching department, a standalone department, so it's not just the responsibility of the police department. It provides the police chief and the fire chief their own separate and equal voice into a third department who's solely responsible for public safety dispatching. And the other scenario that a lot of cities and towns find themselves in, it's a part of the police department, so you have the fire chief going to a police sergeant or a lieutenant and trying to improve operations, improve the way they dispatch, and it just becomes more of a kind of a challenge between the two departments. So if it's set into a separate professional department, there's equal access and governance over how dispatching operations are concluded and should provide a more stable and professional way of doing that. So,
Question on that?
Yeah, sure.
By pulling it out of police or fire and putting this other department, is that change the way they get benefits, maybe change the pay structure and all of that? Or is it all gonna, or are we gonna really be just moving to a new person with a new supervisor?
Right, yeah, so we have 9 dispatchers in the police department right now, and they're part of a union. We have a 3-year agreement with them, so I don't see a lot changing there. That union agreement has some hierarchy in it. There is some supervisory levels that are included in the union. The fire department uses a firefighter to dispatch, so in comparison, actually, wages would change if you consider the firefighter's wage sitting at the desk versus a dispatcher's wage. Dispatcher's wage would be a little bit less. It would create a new management level position, but all in all, assuming that we're going to have a department somewhere around 20 total dispatchers to cover all operations on a 24/7 basis, the costs will be rather similar. We also get a state grant for those 9 dispatchers, and that would be increased. We're not getting that grant for fire right now since they're firefighters.
Okay.
Brian, you had a question?
Yes, need for this space has been accounted for
Yeah.
within the new.
Yeah, so right now, the current police station has 2 dispatching consoles, and there's 1 at the fire department, and the new police station has 6, I believe, six consoles. So it's all self-contained. Looking forward to everyone getting a chance to see that whenever it opens, but yeah.
Jim has a question, Kevin.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, just on the consulting. Are you seeing that approach elsewhere in other communities?
It's a very common approach, yeah. Communities use, there's several specialized firms, even in New England. They use them to study both the creation of a unified dispatching system and then regional dispatching entities when cities and towns combine with each other. So there's a lot of opportunity to get, someone that's used to doing this and making us a good recommendation.
Thank you.
Sure. We need to seek an appropriation for $185,000 in additional funds to cover the cost of an HVAC upgrade at the Floral School. Certainly, costs and inflation have, brought bid results in much higher, even though we're competitively bidding them out. We originally budgeted $150,000. Unfortunately, we need another $185,000 to tackle this project. We are seeking $100,000 for the development of a master addressing database that all departments from assessing, tax collection, building inspectors department, GIS system would rely upon and pull from. It'll streamline our back office operations, provide more consistency, especially on the building permit side for data quality.
Is this a IT requirement?
I'm sorry?
It's in the IT department?
Yeah, it's a joint effort between IT and the mission-driven aspects, mainly the assessor, building inspector, and GIS departments. So we'll talk more about that. As many of you know, we're running out of space at the Mountain View Cemetery. In the 1970s, what is known as Prospect Park was acquired for cemetery use purposes. We developed a concept plan through funding that we received in 2021. That concept plan has been reviewed and approved by the Parks and Cemetery Commission, and we are seeking funding to move from concept to full construction documents, and we need about $200,000 to do that. This would provide full construction documents for a plan that would provide an estimated 50 years of burial space on the Prospect Park side of Boylston Street. And then
Dennis has a question.
Oh, yes.
As we go to full build plans, when are we expecting to start that? And how much of the current park, my understanding is there's a couple phases to this, so it's really the park right off of Prospect and is it Merriam is where they're gonna start. You'll still be going up the hill, you'll still have the woods and the.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So all features of Prospect Park in the, I guess, northeastern corner where the pergola and all those things are, will remain, and we'll be working at the opposite end, closer down to the intersection of Prospect and Boylston, Merriam, as Dennis said. We do feel that we can get construction documents and a budget estimate in hand to come back to the annual town meeting in this May to seek funding authorization for the construction.
Okay, so it's still gonna be out to at least May to start, most likely,
Yeah, I mean, we probably wouldn't start construction maybe till the fall of 2023 or spring of 2024.
I've been getting a lot of questions outside on it because people forget that this was purchased in 1970 for this purpose, and it's only recently they're starting to hear about it. And again, it's that public, information piece to get it out to the public to let them know that this has been the plan for 30 years or 50 years.
Yeah, and staff will be in to provide a full presentation, show all the concept and design plans at the next meeting. But we, just generally speaking, we are not looking to provide a clear-cut cemetery like you see in Mountain View. It's more of a natural park setting environment. A lot of
Is this
trees will.
because of environmental concerns?
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of trees will remain. A lot of meandering paths will be throughout. It will connect well into the park aspects of that lot. New parking that will also benefit the park, things like that.
That sounds great. I would just recommend, it's not finance committee related, that we start getting that word out a lot sooner to the public so they realize that it's not clear cutting, just overlooking gravestones. It's going to be a lot nicer and still be usable by the people that use it.
Sure. Citizens petitions are due September 20th, so coming up next week. So we're holding 2 spots as we always do for them. And then
Are there some already in queue or?
there are not.
They're not. Okay.
We don't have any. And then finally, the town was approached by the Daniels family, current owner of a large parcel of land at 32 Old Colony. They would like, they have developed an A&R plan, approval not required, to develop their parcel into 3 house lots. When they came up with this concept plan, they have identified 3.5 acres that's adjacent to town-owned property, accessible through an easement from Sword Street, that they would like to gift to the town, so provide it to us without fee. So town meeting would have to accept that gift, so we are proposing an article to do just that, so.
Dennis?
If I understand correctly, they have 3 lots that they're gonna build, but there's a parcel next to those lots that they're gonna gift.
That's right.
So they're still gonna be building 3 lots.
Yep, so they, roughly speaking, there's about 10 acres of land, 8 to 10 acres of land. They're gonna develop 7 or so and give us 3.5.
And that 7 or so, I think you said were roughly 3 lots, so it's not
Yep,
gonna be
that's correct.
7 houses. I mean, those would be,
Yep.
historically large lots for
Yep,
Shrewsbury, which
they
is
would be
great.
really, yep, they range from about 3 1/3 to 2.5 acres for the individual lot sizes.
Yep.
Yep,
So they're taking, 7 or 8 acres and making it 3 houses versus what we've done in Shrewsbury, where we take 7 acres and make it 21 houses.
correct.
Okay. I'll
So we would look
Take
to,
that.
receive this by gift and then deed it for open space.
Upon acceptance of the gift, how much, like, checking of the land is done instead of just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with that property before they would just go ahead and accept it?
Like a 21E or anything like that, like environmental review
Yeah.
or, yeah. We will do a preliminary review prior to getting to town meeting. We have been working with the landowner for about 6 or 8 weeks, so not a lot of time, but we're working through our due diligence, and we'll enter into the, even a P&S, even though it's a gift, and do our due diligence. We won't just accept it. But to our knowledge, it's never been developed from what we can tell so far.
And then one last question.
Sure, Dennis.
I'm assuming, obviously, that's coming off the tax rolls, because it's gifting as open land. That's gonna be far less than what we should be receiving back in taxes when the houses are developed.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, correct. Yep. I mean, 3.5 acres of undeveloped land is probably equal to 1 of the house lots once it's developed. Yep. Okay, so just want to spend a little bit more time talking about changes with regards to the financials from the annual town meeting to the May town meeting that we'll handle through the 3rd warrant article up here. So what am I going to this? Oh, we're just going to.
Yeah, let's go from master
Yep.
balance sheet.
So in front of you, we've provided a master balance sheet to the finance committee members. So Alex is gonna walk you through some changes from what we thought was gonna happen in May, and we'll then tie that back in together to some of the articles that we've proposed.
Great, thank you. So as mentioned, we start developing the revenue projections in the fall. So we started FY23 revenue projections in November of last year, and we took those projections all the way through the development of the budget and ultimately to town meeting, where we present a balanced budget with equal revenues and charges. As we've gone through that, and now that we get into the fall, we have a couple of categories that require some adjustments, and you'll see at the bottom in the FY23 fall special town meeting column, we show a surplus of $866,348. And so I'll just go through those changes now. So the first category on revenues that we are seeing an increase in is new growth. We estimated $925,000 in new growth for FY23, and we are now comfortable bumping that up to $1.5 million. So that results in a net increase of $575,000 in the new growth line. We also have an increase in state aid. So this is revenue that we receive from the state budget. It also includes state and county charges and offsets down on the charges side. The state budget is typically not finalized by the time we go to town meeting. Actually, this budget was finalized in the middle of July. So this is a standard adjustment that we make at the fall special town meeting once the the governor signs the final budget and we get those numbers. So you'll see that in state aid revenue, we have a net increase of $268,040 in that category. And then going down to charges. So the first change down in charges is cherry sheet offsets. It's just a slight increase of $16,037. And then we have a decrease in state and county charges of $39,345. And so those changes in the revenue and charges of new growth and state aid have resulted in a $866,348 surplus, which is a pretty good problem to have.
So those warrant, thanks, Alex. So those warrant articles that I talked about do propose to use all $866,000 with, again, a contribution into the general stabilization fund. The general is detailed out for you here. That contribution of just shy of $175,000 would push the general stabilization fund balance up to $3,811,000. That is 2 3/4% of the current budget, and our policy goal is 5%. So we're moving in that direction. Going back to when we talked about fiscal year 22 and how we ended with turning back about $2.5 million from the budget, having about $2.5 million in excess revenue over what we budgeted, and then our base from last year of free cash that we didn't spend. I anticipate that we'll be somewhere around $8.5 to $9 million in total free cash. So at the annual town meeting, we'll be moving more funds from free cash into this stabilization account, again, trying to move towards our 5% policy target. The overall goal with the $866,000 is to spend it in non-recurring ways. We're not looking to increase any operating budget with it. So essentially, it will be available for appropriation for additional one-time expenses or ongoing expenses when we look at the fiscal year 24 budget. One of the changes that we do intend to make within the operating budget is increasing the Finance Committee Reserve Fund by $166,000, and this is something that I mentioned at your last meeting. Given the fact that, as Alex said, we start the budget process around this time of year and wrap it up 6 or 8 months from now, we weren't thinking about inflation as much then as we likely would have liked ourselves to. But by increasing this reserve fund, it nearly doubles it. I think it will provide us sufficient amount of money to handle any expenses. We have seen a lot of inflationary pressures in the water and water chemicals were sometimes 2 or 3 times more expensive than they were in the prior year. We purchase in a joint purchase agreement with the city of Worcester all of our diesel fuel and our gasoline, and that's done on a calendar year basis. So we've been benefiting really over the last 9 months, a little over $2 a gallon for gasoline and just shy of $3 or a little over $3 a gallon for diesel. So we expect that to increase, of course, when we go back out to market, but hopefully that year-long lock-in, we shave the peak. So I think that will continue to benefit us, but we may need some support from the Finance Committee and coming back to you to the reserve fund to balance some of the budget as we get further through the fiscal year. As we talked about the expansion of the cemetery, one of the preliminary thoughts that we've been discussing at a staff level is we have a preliminary estimate the cost of that 50-year expansion would be about $5 million of work. If we borrow for 20 years, for the early few years in that borrowing, which would be the highest since we use declining debt service model, would be about $500,000. So in order not to increase taxes and have a debt exclusion question, we are targeting some of this $866,000, next year, since it's a recurring revenue source in lieu of a debt exclusion. So we're focusing on that and putting ourselves in a position to do that. So Everything else is the one-time expenditures that Alex laid out. We're also looking to make some budget transfers between departments that have obviously no net impact on the bottom line. We'll detail that out a little bit more for you in a chart when we come back in a couple weeks for the hearing, but we just wanted to provide that overview for you this evening.
Sure. Any questions? So I guess we're done with the town warrant draft? Yes. We'll move on to item number 7, which is to review our meeting schedule. On October 6th, 2022, we will be meeting for a public hearing on a special town meeting warrant articles. That will be in the Shrewsbury Library, not over here, so please take note of that, meeting room A.
At 7?
Yes.
Alex, yeah.
Yep.
I think the invitation has gone out.
Yes.
Yeah. Should have received an email. And October 17th, we convene for our special town meeting, which will be where, Alex?
Oak Middle School.
Oak Middle School. And that will be the timings. Do you know about that? What time it's at?
That will also be at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Does anybody have any questions on that schedule?
Vikram, just, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but you will meet at like 6:45 just in case there's any business. So just a
Yes.
couple minutes before the start of the special town meeting, just so you can gather. So,
Okay.
well, we'll let everyone know.
Even for the October 6th, do we have to
No,
meet
no,
early?
no.
Or just the 17th?
No, just the 17th. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And do we have a schedule for our meetings in November forward, November going forward?
Just traditionally, we've met the third Thursday of every month,
Okay.
so we would intend to
Continue that?
stay with that schedule, and we can provide a little bit longer look when we come back on the 6th, maybe, Alex,
Yep.
of get us into the new year with a plan.
Sounds good. So no questions from any member of the board? Okay. We'll move to other business. So do we have any other business? Okay. We will now review the correspondence that we received as members of the Finance Committee. On page 2, item A, an email to the Finance Committee from Anna Kane, our state representative, regarding the Route 20 $5 million earmark in transportation bond bill. It was dated June 24th, 2022. Email to the Finance Committee from Hannah Kane, State Rep, regarding the $4.3 billion Economic Development Bill update, dated July 18, 2022. The next item was an email also from Hannah Kane regarding the fiscal year 23 state budget update, dated July 19, 2022. And the final correspondence we received was a memorandum to the Finance Committee from Kevin Mizikar, our town manager, regarding the proposed fall special town meeting with action dates dated August 8th, 2022. Any questions on correspondence? So we've duly noted all that correspondence. Do I have to get a motion to don't note? No, okay. And I guess that completes our business for today. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, please say nay. The motion passes. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you very much for your participation.
You all.
Thank you.
Thank you.